the first thing that we'll want to do is create our new application. So we'll go into our terminal here and run the Rails new command. So we'll just say Rails new, and then whatever the name of the application is going to be. So in my case, I'm going to call it Lancer. You can call it whatever you'd like. If it's easier for you, just call it Lancer as well, so that if we ever do refer to it later on in the course, it won't be confusing. So here, we'll also want to add in the minus capital T sign. And what that'll do is skip all of the testing folders. So because we're not going to be using any sort of testing in this application or throughout this course, we do a minus capital T, and that'll not create any of the testing folders for us. So go ahead and press enter. It'll go through and create all of our directories and create all of the files for a Rails application. And what you'll want to do is just cd into it. So cd into Lancer, and then open it up in your text editor. So in my case, I have Sublime Text, and I have a shortcode for it, so I'll use Sublime period sign. So here we are, we have our application. The first thing I like doing is to clean up the gem file. And so I like to just get rid of all of these comments and go down here and get rid of these as well. And we can do that to the routes as well. So go into our routes, it's got all of these comments, just go through, delete all of them. Alright, and the first thing that I like doing in any new project is creating our initial database schema. So what should our databases look like? So first, let's create a new migration. So Rails G migration, we'll call it initial schema. And what that'll do is create a file for us, a migration file for us. So if we go into initial schema, we'll have the ability to create all of our tables. And so let's go ahead and start creating all of our tables. So we'll do create table. We're going to call it gigs, you can call it jobs, you can call it all sorts of things, but for sake of ease, I highly recommend that you just call it all of the tables what I'm calling them here. So we'll have a gigs table, do T, it'll have a name, it'll have a description, let's see, an integer for the budget, a location, we'll say whether or not it's open, so we'll say default to true, T integer, awarded proposal. Yeah, that'll be right. And then t.timestamps. And the reason we have this awarded proposal is we're going to have a proposal table where freelancers can create a proposal for the gig. So we'll also do a create table. But first, let's create categories. And do that string, create a table of skills. So what kind of skills do you want people to have for your gigs? Do a name as well, create table, plus proposals, and we'll have an integer so they'll be able to bid on your proposal, tell you what it is that they're going to do, and let's timestamp that as well. Abilities, and the difference here is that we're creating a table for a many-to-many relationship, and that'll become more evident as we go throughout the course. But this abilities table here, what it does is it connects our skills to our gigs, because gigs can have many skills, skills can have many different gigs. So in order to combine those two, we have an abilities table. And again, you don't have to absorb that right now. It'll become more evident as we go throughout the course here, and we actually get to that point of showing you a many-to-many relationship. And down here, what we'll want to do is add reference to gigs, category, index, true. And what this is doing here is saying for our gigs table, I want you to index our category table, so that, let's say we have a category of web development. Whenever you're in your gigs here, it'll have that relationship to that web development category. So if the category ever changes from web development to web design for whatever reason, it'll change that to all of your gigs automatically, so that we're adding that reference to it, so that if anything changes with that category, it'll also automatically change it for your gigs. So we'll add a few more here. Add reference. Oh, why does it keep doing that? We'll do proposals, gig, index, true. Add reference, abilities, gig, index, true. Abilities as well, index, true. And so for our abilities here, this is again our table that's connecting two other tables for our many-to-many associations. This will become more evident. So again, just to kind of recap what we're doing here, is we've got our gigs table, we have our categories, which will be indexed on our gigs. So our gigs will have a category ID on it, and whenever that category changes, it'll also change it on whatever gig it's related to. Our proposals, which also has an index on the gigs. So let's say we create a proposal for somebody who's looking for a web developer, and for whatever reason that gig changes, the name changes, the description changes, the budget changes. When we're taking a look at that proposal, it'll also be reflected on there as well. So we're creating that connection to those two tables there. And then our abilities table, which I'll show you again later on throughout the course how we're going to use this here. So this is definitely not something that you will probably come up with right off the bat. As I continued to build out this application, I started to figure out, okay, what do I need for all of my tables here? And this is what was the end resolution, or the end solution here. The end outcome was all of these tables right here. So this probably isn't something that you're going to come up with right off the bat, but because I've already built out this application, I kind of know that these tables are all the things that I'll need for this application. Whenever you're building out a new application, you'll want to try to get as close as possible to the end schema of what your application is going to be. So a lot of times this drives your application. It doesn't necessarily have to, because you can always make changes to these, but if you can get this right, or closer to what the end result is going to be in the beginning, it'll save you a lot of headache. So there we have it. We have all of our tables there, and what we'll want to do is do a rake db migrate, and that'll actually go through and run all of our commands here by creating all of our tables. And you'll see that here. Now if we go into our schema, RB, you'll see that it went ahead and did that. So we have our abilities table, categories table, our gigs table, and so on and so forth. Alright, so in the next video we'll go ahead and start building out the models and the controllers and connecting all of the database tables.